As the sun rises over the great mounds, long shadows stretch across the fertile fields. The city awakens to the sounds of life. Children laughing, traders calling out their wares, and the steady rhythm of drums echoing from the central plaza. This is Cahokia, the largest settlement of its time in North America. At its peak, tens of thousands of people lived here, making it a thriving hub of culture, trade, and ceremony. Homes, gardens, and sacred spaces spread across the landscape, forming a city unlike any other. Dominating the skyline is Monk's Mound, a monumental earthwork built by human hands. It served as the center of power, where leaders guided the community and performed sacred rituals. From its summit, one could see the rivers that nourished the fields and carried traders from distant lands. Daily life was rich and interconnected. Farmers tended maize, beans, and squash, while artisans shaped clay into vessels and wove mats for homes. Every task reflected a deep connection to the earth and to the community. At night, fires flickered across the city. Families gathered to share stories, honor the spirits, and prepare for another day. Cahokia was more than a settlement. It was a vibrant civilization, a testament to ingenuity and culture that still echoes through time.
I didn't expect to find a lost city here in the middle of Illinois, but here I am, just outside of St. Louis, surrounded by prairie grass and ancient silence. This is Cahokia Mounds, and it's nothing like I imagined. The first thing you notice is the scale. Monk's Mound rises like a green pyramid over 100 feet tall, built entirely by hand. No stone, no metal tools, just earth, carried basket by basket. It's the largest prehistoric earthwork in North America, and it's been here for nearly 1,000 years. As I climb the steps, I think about who built this, the Mississippians. They were farmers, artisans, astronomers. At its peak, Cahokia was the home to over 15 to 20,000 people. That's bigger than London in 1100, and yet most of us have never heard of it. From up here, you can see the layout of the city. There's plazas, neighborhoods, ceremonial spaces, everything aligned to the cardinal directions. This wasn't random, it was intentional, strategic, sacred.
When we talk about Cahokia, we often picture the great city at its height, the towering Monk's Mound, the grand plazas, and the tens of thousands of residents. But the story of Cahokia begins long before its famous rise. Between 600 and 1050 CE, this landscape was already alive with innovation, migration, and cultural transformation. the foundations of what would become North America's first true metropolis. Around 600 CE, the Cahokia region was dotted with small agricultural villages. These early communities were part of a broader cultural tradition that followed the Great Hopewell and woodland societies. People here cultivated maize, squash, and sunflowers, supplementing their diet with hunting and river fishing. Their settlements were modest, clusters of houses surrounding communal spaces, but they were stable, growing, and increasingly interconnected. Trade routes stretched in every direction, linking the Mississippi Valley to the Great Lakes, the Southeast, and the Plains. This was not yet Cahokia, but the seeds were planted.
There's something humbling about walking these paths. The mounds aren't just piles of dirt. They're layered with meaning. Some were homes, some were temples, and some were burial sites. Each one tells a story, if you're willing to listen.
By 700 CE, the region saw a noticeable increase in population. Archaeological evidence shows that people began gathering into larger, more organized communities. During this period, the first platform mounds appeared, small at first, but symbolically powerful. These early mounds elevated leaders, ceremonies, and sacred objects above the everyday world. They reflected a growing belief system centered on the sun, the sky, and the cycles of nature, themes that would later define Mississippian religion. Agriculture expanded dramatically. Maize, once a supplemental crop, became a dietary cornerstone. With more reliable food came more people, and with more people came complexity. Between 900 and 1000 CE, the Cahokia area transformed from a region of villages into a regional center. Population surged, fields expanded, and social hierarchies sharpened. Long-distance trade intensified. Exotic materials like copper from the Great Lakes, shells from the Gulf Coast, and mica from the Appalachians flowed into the region. Communities began aligning their buildings and public spaces with cardinal directions, a practice that would later define Cahokia's urban layout. This was a society preparing itself, consciously or not, for something unprecedented. By 1050 CE, Cahokia had crossed a threshold. What had once been a cluster of villages was now a sprawling, planned city, the largest urban center ever built north of Mesoamerica. Over the next century and a half, Cahokia would reach its peak, becoming a hub of ceremony, trade, innovation, and political power. Long before Cahokia rose into a city of tens of thousands, before the Great Mound shaped the horizon, the people here told stories about how the world began. Stories of sky and water, of beings who shaped the land, and of a universe divided into three great realms. These weren't just myths. They were the architecture of reality, the blueprint for how Cahokians understood their place in the cosmos. Cahokian religion imagined the universe as three interconnected worlds: the upper world, a realm of sky beings, thunderers, and powerful forces of order; the middle world, our world, the land of humans, animals, crops, and the daily struggle to maintain balance; the underworld, a watery, chaotic realm beneath the earth, home to serpents, spirits, and beings of transformation. These worlds weren't separate. They touched, overlapped, and influenced one another. And the people of Cahokia believed the creation itself emerged from the tension between these realms. According to the Cahokian origin story, in the beginning, there was only water, endless, shifting, and powerful. Beneath its surface lived the beings of the underworld, serpents with antlers, panthers with scales, creatures who could slip between forms. Above the water stretched the sky, where the thunderers lived, great winged beings whose voices were storms. Between them was nothing, no land, no people, and no place to stand. From the upper world, came a being often called the Sky Person, a figure found again and again in Mississippian art. He descended towards the waters, carrying with him the power of order, light, and possibility. But there was nowhere to land, so he called upon the animals of the deep. One by one, the animals dove beneath the surface to bring up a handful of earth. The beaver tried, the otter tried, the loon tried. Each returned exhausted and empty-handed. Finally, the humble muskrat dove deeper than all the rest. When he floated back to the surface, lifeless, the Sky Person opened his tiny paws, and there, clinging to his fur, was a pinch of mud. From this mud, the Sky Person began to shape the land. The earth grew and grew, spreading across the waters until it became the middle world, the world of humans. The Sky Person walked upon it, shaping the rivers, hills, and the first plants. But creation was not peaceful. The beings of the underworld rose against him, sending serpents and storms to pull the land back beneath the waves. The Thunderers, powerful sky beings, came to his aid. Their lightning struck the waters, driving back the serpents. Their thunder shook the earth into form. This cosmic struggle between sky and water, order and chaos, became the foundation of Cahokian religion. Every storm, every flood, and every drought was understood as part of the ancient conflict still unfolding. From the newly shaped earth came the first people. Some stories say they emerged from the ground itself. Others say they were shaped by the Sky Person. Still others say they were born from the union of sky and earth. What all versions share is this: humans were created to maintain balance between the three worlds, to honor the sky, to respect the waters, and to live in harmony with the land. Many Mississippian traditions speak of hero twins, children of a sky being and a woman of the middle world. They traveled between realms, battling monsters, restoring order, and teaching humans how to live. Their stories echo across the southeast, and their imagery appears in Cahokian art. The twins were culture bringers, teaching people how to hunt, how to plant, how to play sacred games, and how to honor the spirits. Cahokia itself was built as a reflection of this cosmic order. The great mounds aligned with the sun. The plazas represented the middle world. The woodhenges marked the turning of the seasons. Every structure was a reminder that humans lived at the center of a vast, interconnected universe. To live well was to keep the worlds in balance. For the Cahokians, creation wasn't a single moment. It was an ongoing process, renewed every sunrise, every harvest, every ceremony. The world was always being made and remade, shaped by choices of humans and the forces of the sky and water. And here on this landscape, the people built a city that mirrored the cosmos. The Cahokian creation story is more than a myth. It's a worldview, one that saw the earth as alive, the sky as powerful, and humans as caretakers of a fragile balance. And in the mounds, the plazas, and the stories that survive through descendant nations, we can still feel the heartbeat of this ancient vision.
Just west of Monk's Mound is Woodhenge, a circle of massive wooden posts that mark solstices and equinoxes. It's like Stonehenge, but built from trees. Imagine standing here 900 years ago, watching the sun rise perfect between two posts. That moment signaled planting season. Time, nature, ceremony, all woven together.
Woodhenge wasn't a single structure. Archaeologists have found 5 separate circles, each built at different times between about 900 and 1100 CE. Each circle was enormous, up to 410 feet across, with 48 massive cedar posts arranged in a perfect ring. At the center stood a single post, marking the observer's position. From here, the rising sun aligned with specific posts on the horizon during the solstices and equinoxes. This wasn't guesswork. It was engineering. It was cosmology made visible. The posts were made of red cedar, a tree that held deep spiritual meaning across the Mississippian world. Cedar symbolized life, protection, and the sacred. Using it to build a cosmic calendar wasn't just practical, it was ceremonial. Each post was a connection between earth and sky, a vertical axis linking the 3 worlds of Cahokian belief. Cahokian cosmology imagined the universe as 3 interconnected realms: the upper world, the middle world, and the underworld. Woodhenge was a tool for navigating these realms. The rising sun, especially at the solstices, marked moments when the boundaries between worlds thinned. Time wasn't just measured, it was felt. Imagine standing here 1,000 years ago on the morning of the winter solstice. The air is cold, fires burning along the plaza. Hundreds, maybe thousands of people gathered in silence. As the sun crested the horizon, it rose precisely between 2 cedar posts. This moment signaled the turning of the year, the return of light, and the renewal of the world. These weren't just astronomical events. They were ceremonies of cosmic balance. Woodhenge wasn't isolated. Its alignments pointed directly towards Monk's Mound, the political and spiritual heart of Cahokia. On equinox mornings, the sun rose almost perfectly over the mound's eastern edge when viewed from the center of the circle. This wasn't accidental. It visually tied the leader, who lived atop Monk's Mound, to the sun itself. Power, cosmology, and landscape woven together. For Cahokians, tracking the sun wasn't just spiritual, it was practical. The solstices and equinoxes marked the agricultural calendar: when to plant, when to harvest, and when to prepare for Mississippi's seasonal floods. Woodhenge helped synchronize the rhythms of community life with the rhythms of the cosmos. Timekeeping was a sacred responsibility. Archaeologists believe Woodhenge was a place of ceremony, a stage for rituals that involve music, dance, offerings, and storytelling. These gatherings reinforced social bonds, renewed cosmic order, and reminded the community of their place in the universe, alive with meaning. In a world without written calendars, Woodhenge was the clock, the compass, and the sacred text. Over the centuries, Cahokians rebuilt Woodhenge again and again, shifting its size, adjusting its alignments, refining its geometry. Each new circle reflected changes in leadership, population, or cosmological emphasis. The act of rebuilding was itself a ritual, a way of renewing the world. Standing here now, it's easy to feel the quiet power of this place. Woodhenge was more than a calendar. It was a bridge between worlds, a way for Cahokians to align their lives with the sun, the seasons, and the sacred order of the universe. And in these simple cedar posts, we glimpse a civilization that understood the sky not as something distant, but as a partner in the story of life. If you stand here on Cahokia's Grand Plaza and close your eyes, you can almost hear it, The rhythmic thud of polished stone rolling across packed earth, the sharp inhale of a crowd watching its path, and the triumphant shout as a spear lands just inches from its final resting place. This wasn't just a game. Chunkey was a spectacle, ceremony, diplomacy, and an identity woven into one. Chunkey was deceptively simple. A player rolled a perfectly carved stone disc, smooth, symmetrical, and heavy, across the ground. Competitors hurled long spears toward its path, aiming to land closest to where the stone stopped. But the simplicity ends there. These stones were works of art, carved from granite or limestone, polished to a shine, and often buried with high-status individuals. They weren't toys, they were symbols. For the people of Cahokia, Chunkey wasn't just recreation. It was a cultural anchor, a way to reinforce alliances, settle disputes, and even communicate political power. Imagine thousands of people gathered here, the game unfolding beneath the shadow of Monk's Mound. Chiefs and elites used Chunkey events to display generosity, distribute food, and reinforce their status. In a world without written language, public performance was politics. What's remarkable is how far Chunkey spread. As Cahokia rose to prominence between 1050 and 1350 CE, its cultural influence rippled outward. From the Great Lakes to the Gulf Coast, communities adopted the game, and with it, Cahokian ideas about leadership, ceremony, and social order. Archaeologists find Chunkey stones in villages hundreds of miles away, often in elite burials or ceremonial spaces. It's a reminder that Cahokia wasn't just a city, it was a cultural engine. Chunkey also carried spiritual meaning. Some Mississippian artwork shows supernatural beings holding Chunkey stones or playing the game themselves. The rolling disc may have symbolized the sun's path, the cycle of life, or the movement between worlds. When players stepped onto the plaza, they weren't just competing, they were participating in a cosmic drama, reenacting stories that shaped their understanding of the universe. While most depictions show men playing, Chunkey was a community event. Families gathered to watch. Children practiced with smaller stones. Traders, artisans, and farmers mingled. These games were moments where Cahokia felt like a single heartbeat. Thousands of people sharing one experience, one story, one identity. Some accounts from late southeastern tribes describe Chunkey games with incredibly high stakes. Wagers involving food, tools, and even personal freedom. While we can't say for certain that Cahokians gambled in the same way, the intensity of the game suggests that competition was more than friendly. It was a test of skill, honor, and sometimes fate. As Cahokia declined in the 14th century, the game didn't disappear. It lived on among descendant communities, the Choctaw, Chickasaw, and others, each adapting it to their own traditions. Even today, Chunkey stones remain some of the most iconic artifacts of the Mississippian world. They remind us that games aren't trivial. They are windows into how people understood power, community, and the cosmos. Just south of Monk's Mound, and what was once a dense ceremonial district alive with processions, feasts, and ritual gatherings, sits a ridge-top mound that doesn't look like much at first glance. Modest, low, almost quiet. But beneath that unassuming profile lies one of the most astonishing archaeological discoveries in North America. A discovery that fundamentally reshaped how we understand Cahokia's social world, its cosmology, and the power of its leaders. This is Mound 72. The mound was excavated in the 1960s and 70s by archaeologist Melvin Fowler, whose work at Cahokia helped define an entire era of Mississippian archaeology. Fowler wasn't originally searching for burials at all. He was investigating the placement of large wooden posts he believed were part of a Cahokia solar calendar, what we now call Woodhenge. But as he dug into the ridge, he uncovered something far more complex: a multi-stage burial mound built and rebuilt over time. Each layer marks a moment of ceremony, renewal, and political transformation. Fowler documented the excavation with detailed field maps, burial diagrams, and photographs, the kind of careful record-keeping that later allowed researchers to revisit his findings and even correct earlier interpretations. The artifacts and remains he uncovered were curated through museums and research institutions, forming the backbone of what we know today about Cahokia's ritual life. As Fowler peeled back the layers of Mound 72, he uncovered more than 270 individuals arranged in a series of burials that were anything but ordinary. At the heart of the mound was a burial that stunned the archaeological world. A man long believed to be a paramount leader, laid to rest on a bed of more than 20,000 shell beads. But these beads weren't simply poured beneath him. They were arranged with extraordinary precision to form the shape of a great bird, wings outstretched beneath his body. The head of the bird lay beneath his own head, the wings extended under his arms, the tail fanned out beneath his legs. This was not decoration. It was cosmology made physical. In Mississippian iconography, the raptor or falcon is a symbol of the upper world, the realm of sky beings, thunderers, and cosmic authority. To place a leader on a bird-shaped platform was to declare him someone who bridged worlds, someone whose power was sanctioned by the cosmos itself. For decades, archaeologists believed this central burial was a single man, accompanied by two young women placed above him. But modern reanalysis revealed something unexpected. This discovery forces scholars to rethink long-held assumptions about leadership, gender, and ritual roles in Cahokia. It suggests a more complex social landscape, one where identity, status, and cosmology intertwined in ways we're only beginning to understand. Around the beaded burial, other high-status individuals were found with finely crafted grave goods, copper from the Great Lakes, mica from the Appalachians, and chirp points arranged in symbolic patterns. These objects weren't just wealth. They were statements of connection, influence, and ritual power stretching across the continent. But Mound 72 also revealed a darker, more sobering dimension of Cahokian ritual life. Several mass graves contain young men and women who appeared to have been sacrificed. Some were bound. Others show signs of ritual execution. These weren't chaotic or hurried burials. They were staged with precision, like part of public ceremonies that reinforced the authority of Cahokia's leaders and the cosmological order they claimed to uphold. One of the most haunting discoveries was a burial of 4 young males, their hands and skulls removed. This layout echoes motifs found in Mississippian art, scenes of decapitation, dismemberment, and transformation associated with mythic heroes and the passage between worlds. To Cahokians, these acts may have been part of a sacred drama, a reenactment of stories that shaped their understanding of life, death, and cosmic balance. Altogether, the burials of Mound 72 reveal a society with deep social stratification, powerful ritual specialists, and a cosmology that demanded dramatic, public acts of renewal. These ceremonies weren't hidden away. They were performances witnessed by thousands that reinforced the idea that Cahokia's leaders were more than political figures. They were intermediaries between realms, responsible for maintaining balance between the upper world, the middle world, and the underworld. Today, Mound 72 stands as one of the most important archaeological sites on the continent. Its discoveries continue to challenge assumptions, spark debate, and illuminate the profound human drama at the heart of Cahokia, a city of mounds and plazas, yes, but also a city of belief, spectacle, and power. Between 1000 CE and 1030 CE, activities at Mound 72 come to a close, with no further evidence of sacrifices taking place at Cahokia. Within a short time period, a population of about 1,000 people grew to around 15,000 to 20,000 people by 1050 CE. People from surrounding communities migrated to Cahokia, bringing their skills and dedication for a greater cause. Old building structures and homes are disassembled, and a new town is built on top. The tallest structure, Monk's Mound, takes shape. The houses are built in a uniform way, square structures with tall grass roofs. More neighborhoods pop up surrounding Monk's Mound, and at this point, Cahokia's influence spreads wide. Between 1050 and 1100 CE, Cahokia entered one of the most intense construction periods in ancient North America. More than 120 mounds were built across the city and its surrounding communities. At this point, Monk's Mound rose 10 stories high and covered more ground than the Great Pyramid of Giza. It required an estimate of 15 million baskets of earth, each carried by hand. The city's layout was aligned to the cardinal directions. Plazas were engineered to drain water efficiently. Mounds were layered with different soils to prevent collapse, a technique that reveals deep architectural knowledge. By 1100 CE, Cahokia reached its height. Population estimates range from 15,000 to 40,000 people, making it larger than London at the same time. Its influence radiated outward through trade, diplomacy, and ideology. Satellite towns adopted Cahokian mound forms. Iconography spread across the Midwest and Southeast. Rituals, symbols, and political structures echoed the power of the central city. Cahokia was not an empire in the European sense. It was a cultural engine, a ceremonial capital whose authority rested on cosmology, spectacle, and the ability to mobilize thousands for monumental works. But with growth came new pressures and new vulnerabilities. Roughly around 1130 CE, Cahokia undertook one of its most ambitious projects, the construction of a massive wooden palisade, about 2 miles long, surrounding this central ceremonial precinct. The question is why? Why would a thriving, powerful city build a wall? The reasons are complex and likely overlapping. One explanation is political consolidation. The palisade may have marked a shift in leadership, a new regime asserting control over sacred spaces and restricting access to rituals that once were more public. Another explanation is social tension. Rapid population growth can strain resources and create internal divisions. The wall may have separated elites from commoners during a period of instability. A third explanation is defense. Evidence of conflict appears in the region during this era, and the palisades projecting towers, its bastions, suggest a design for surveillance and protection. Some scholars argue the wall was cosmological, not military, a symbolic boundary between the sacred center and the everyday world. And finally, the placement of gates indicates regulated entry, suggesting the wall may have controlled movement during ceremonies, political gatherings, or redistribution events. Whatever the reason, the palisade was not a simple fence. It was a statement of power, of order, and of the changing nature of Cahokia society. The construction of the palisade was a feat of engineering and logistics. Thousands of logs, likely oak or hickory, were harvested from upland forests. Each log stood roughly 15 to 20 feet tall, set tightly together around the central precinct roughly 6 feet deep. At regular intervals, the wall projected outward into bastions, allowing defenders to see and shoot along the wall's length, a hallmark of defensive architecture. Archaeologists have identified at least 4 major reconstructions of the palisade over roughly a century. This suggests ongoing maintenance, structural failure from weather or rot, shifting political needs, or renewed threats. A single construction phase may have taken months to a few years, depending on the labor mobilization. Given Cahokia's population and organizational capacity, this project was well within their capabilities. The palisade was not a desperate reaction. It was a planned, sustained investment into the city's core. But even as the palisade rose, signs of strain began to appear. After 1200 CE, the archaeological record showed subtle but unmistakable indicators of stress. Environmental pressures intensified. Flood layers appeared in the sediment record. Drought cycles began to emerge. The Mississippi's rivers channels shift unpredictably. Deforestation around Cahokia became evident. Soil fertility may have declined under intensive agriculture. Some neighborhoods shrink, others reorganize. Outlying communities begin to show signs of independence. The rebuilding of the palisade during this period may reflect renewed instability, either internal or external. Cahokia was still powerful, but the foundations of its dominance were beginning to crack. Between 1250 and 1350 CE, Cahokia underwent a profound transformation. The city did not collapse overnight. Instead, it unraveled gradually through a combination of environmental, social, and political forces. Archaeologists propose several major theories, not mutually exclusive. The first theory for the decline of Cahokia is environmental instability. The Mississippi River Valley is dynamic. Floods, droughts, and channel shifts can reshape the landscape dramatically. Evidence shows major flood events around 1200 to 1250 CE. These could have destroyed fields, homes, and infrastructure. Tree ring data in the region indicates prolonged droughts in the 13th and 14th centuries, stressing agriculture and water supplies. Centuries of intensive maize cultivation may have depleted nutrients, reducing yields. Environmental instability alone may not explain the decline, but it created conditions ripe for crisis. The second theory for Cahokia's decline is social and political upheaval. Cahokia's power depended on centralized leadership and the ability to mobilize labor. If that leadership faltered, the system could unravel. Some mound complexes show signs of burning or abandonment, which may reflect internal conflict or political realignment. If leaders failed to manage environmental crises or maintain ritual authority, public confidence could erode. As conditions worsened, families may have chosen to leave the city for smaller, more stable communities. Political instability may have been both a cause and a consequence of decline. The third theory is warfare, or external pressure. While direct evidence of large-scale warfare is limited, the repeated rebuilding of the palisade suggests ongoing threats. Neighboring groups may have resisted Cahokia's influence, or sought to control trade routes. As resources tightened, conflict between districts or factions could have escalated. Even the perception of threat can reshape a society, prompting defensive architecture, migration, or political consolidation. Warfare may not have destroyed Cahokia, but it likely contributed to its instability. The fourth theory is disease. There is no direct evidence of epidemic disease at Cahokia, but population density and long-distance trade create conditions where illness can spread rapidly. Some scholars propose that localized outbreaks, not necessarily continental pandemics, could have weakened the population and disrupted social order. Disease is difficult to detect archaeologically. but it remains a plausible factor. The fifth theory for Cahokia's decline is cosmological crisis. Cahokia's society was built on cosmology, on a belief that leaders mediated between the earthly and the celestial. If environmental disasters, crop failures, or political turmoil were interpreted as signs of cosmic imbalance, the entire ideological system would collapse. If ceremonies no longer produced expected outcomes, faith in leadership could erode. Some mounds show signs of ritual closure, deliberate decommissioning rather than destruction. A cosmological crisis could have been the final thread that unraveled the social fabric. By the mid-1300s, Cahokia was a shadow of its former self. Neighborhoods emptied. Mounds were no longer maintained. The palisade fell into disrepair. People dispersed into smaller communities across the region, some north, some south, and some west. Cahokia was not destroyed, it was abandoned. Its population absorbed into new landscapes and new identities. But the Cahokia we know today wasn't discovered in a single moment. It emerged slowly, through 2 centuries of archaeology, debate, and revelation. The first person to raise interest of the great mounds at Cahokia wasn't even an archaeologist. In 1810, when lawyer and amateur antiquarian Henry Brackenridge visited the American Bottom, he was amazed at what he found when he stumbled upon the mound complex. He climbed to the top of Monk's Mound and wrote that he was struck with astonishment. He compared the mounds to the pyramids of Egypt, an early hint that this landscape held a story far older and more complex than settlers imagined. Brackenridge's writings sparked curiosity and ensured that Cahokia would not be forgotten. More than a century later, the first true scientific archaeology began. In the 1920s, Warren K. Moorhead, working for the Illinois State Museum, launched the first large-scale excavations at Cahokia. He mapped dozens of mounds, tested Monk's Mound, and documented early habitation layers. Moorhead's most important contribution wasn't a single artifact. It was preservation. At a time when mounds were being leveled for farming and industry, without him, much of the site might have been destroyed before modern archaeology ever arrived. In the 1960s, Cahokia entered a new era. Archaeologist Melvin L. Fowler led decades of excavations that fundamentally changed our understanding of the city. His most famous discovery came in Mound 72. Fowler also uncovered the remains of Woodhenge. His discovery proved that Cahokians were not only builders, they were astronomers, planners, and ritual specialists. Fowler transformed Cahokia from a mound site into a city, a place of rulers, ceremonies, and sophisticated urban planning. In the 1990s, archaeologist Timothy R. Pauketat began a new wave of research that reframed Cahokia entirely. His excavations in the Richland farming district revealed that Cahokia's rise around 1050 CE wasn't gradual. It was sudden, dramatic, and intentional. Pauketat argued that Cahokia was a cosmological capital, a place where religion, politics, and community were fused into a single, transformative movement. His work connected Cahokia to far-flung regions, showing its influence stretched from the Great Lakes to the southeast. Working alongside Pauketat, Susan Ault expanded the story beyond Cahokia's core. Her excavations revealed the diversity of the communities that fed into Cahokia's rise: farmers, migrants, ritual specialists, and regional partners. Ault's work showed that Cahokia was not an isolated city. It was the center of a network, drawing people, ideas, and traditions from across the Midwest. In the 2000s, Alt and Pauketat launched the Emerald Acropolis project, uncovering a major shrine complex east of Cahokia. They found ritual pathways, ceremonial architecture, and evidence of pilgrimage. This discovery connected Cahokia to a broader spiritual landscape, one that extended far beyond the city limits. Today, archaeologists use LiDAR, ground-penetrating radar, and digital mapping to uncover features without disturbing the soil. These technologies have revealed neighborhoods, plazas, causeways, and even ancient burrow pits, painting the most complete picture of Cahokia ever assembled.
Even now, archaeologists are uncovering new clues. Just last year, they found pottery, tools, and wall trenches from the Sterling phase, around 1100 CE.
Each generation of archaeologists added a new thread to Cahokia's story. Breckenridge recognized its monumental scale. Moorhead preserved it for future study. Fowler uncovered its rulers, sacrifices, and astronomical knowledge. Pauketat and Alt revealed its rapid rise, religious power, and regional influence. Modern teams continue to map its farmlands, shrines, and colonies. Together, they transformed Cahokia from a landscape of mysterious mounds into a vibrant, complex city, one that reshaped the history of North America.